Hello guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Fem Kyubi and Hinata? Part 2. If you want more awesome fan fiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Naruto sighed as he sat on his sofa. Despite thinking about it the whole way home, he was still no closer to working out why Kyuubi-chan seemed to blame herself for the villagers' actions. It just made no sense. Anyone with half a brain should have realized the fault lay with the villagers, not with her. He gave another frustrated sigh, filing it as a girl thing and returning his attention to the scroll of books he had dumped next to him on the sofa. So you going to let me know why these books are interesting? There was a long pause as Naruto listened for a response. When none was forthcoming, he shook his head. Well, there's one way to find out, he muttered to himself, putting a hand on the ceiling scroll and releasing the books with a short burst of chakra. Leaning back against the sofa, a small contented sigh escaping his lips as he did so, Naruto grabbed a book from the pile at random and inspected the cover with a raised eyebrow. The title, Icha Paradise, Steamy Love, was displayed in large font, whilst beneath it there was the image of two people, both heavily chibified. One woman whose modesty was retained only by a towel wrapped loosely around her body, running from a muscular man who was also garbed only in a towel. Naruto's brow crinkled. This book looked familiar somehow. After a moment's thought, he remembered spotting it in the old man's office on a few occasions, along with other books from this series. Well, if the old man read it, then they might be able to help him become Hokage. But that thought, he eagerly opened the book and started reading. His enthusiasm quickly faded however, and he sighed. Yes, there are lots of girls in the onsen, he mused, but does there need to be a long description of each of them? He snorted. He knew what girls looked like, he wasn't blind, and anyway, how was this going to help him deal with Hinata? And what exactly was it he was supposed to realize about having a girlfriend? Shaking himself from his thoughts, he sighed and reapplied his attention to the book. As he read, a soft blush appeared on his cheek, which grew stronger as he continued. He couldn't believe how much there was to kissing and hugging. He turned the page once more and froze, his eyes widening as his blush increased tenfold. Iro Kitsune. He screamed accusingly, throwing the book away as if burned and pointing a finger at the air in front of him. The only reply he got was the raucous laughter echoing around his head and a strange tug on his mind, which he was in no position to resist. He felt his consciousness fading and his vision went dark for a second before Kyuubi's cage faded into view. Kyuubi was leaning against a wall for support, laughing. You should have seen your face. She gasped between her laughs. Naruto frowned. You gave me porn, you perv. He yelled. Kyuubi grinned. You seemed to enjoy it. She replied, forcing down her laughter with some effort. I did not. Naruto yelled defensively. Kyuubi smirked softly. Oh really? She asked, her eyes flicking to his crotch just long enough to be noticeable before lifting back to his face. I think you did. Naruto blanched, clamping his hands over his crotch and looking down to find that there was no tent in his trousers or anything to betray the little part of him that had enjoyed those books. The sound of Kyuubi's renewed laughter cut across his thoughts. He looked up and glared at her. Baka hentai. Kyuubi's response was almost totally illegible through her laughter. You only if proves enjoyed, was all Naruto managed to decipher. Naruto frowned softly, trying to maintain his anger against the smile that threatened to form on his face. He always did appreciate a good prank, even if he was the target of it. Besides, the book hadn't been entirely unhelpful. He had a better idea of more intimate hugs and kisses, although he didn't feel he was ready to use any of this knowledge yet. You know this means war. He said offhandedly. Kyuubi smirked softly. I live in you, what are you going to do to me? She responded, clearly amused. Naruto gave her a scheming grin. You forget whose head this is, I can control reality in here. He concentrated for a second and a bucket of water materialized, floating in the air just above Kyuubi's head. Kyuubi looked up. You wouldn't? She said simply. Naruto's grin grew larger. Wouldn't I? He asked as another two buckets appeared. Kyuubi knew a losing battle when she saw it. Alright, I give. Truce. So offered a hand to Naruto. Naruto gave a silent sigh of relief. A prank war with a being inside his head would probably quickly get him thrown in the loony bin. Alright, truce. He agreed, shaking her head and giving her a small smile. Kyuubi grinned. So what are you going to do with those books now you know what they are? She asked with something halfway between amusement and honest curiosity. Naruto went silent as he thought before grinning. I'll probably read them anyway. He finally announced. Kyuubi giggled. Oh? And why would you do that? Naruto shrugged. They might actually be helpful in the long run. He answered. Besides, I went through all that trouble to get them, I'm not just going to throw them away. Kyuubi gave a low grin. So you do like them then? She asked. Naruto flushed softly. I guess. He replied. They were okay, I can see why the old man might read them. Kyuubi smirked. The Hokage? I bet he just reads them because he's too old to get any. She chuckled. Naruto pulled a face. Well, thanks for that mental image. he said sarcastically, even with the limited information of the first few paragraphs of the scene he had read he still really didn't want to think about the Hokage doing that. Kyuubi giggled harder. I aim to please. Naruto shook his head to try and clear his head of the lingering images, with only moderate success. Well anyway. Can we do some more training? Kyuubi giggled happily. Sure, why not? She agreed. What do you want to learn? Naruto grinned like Christmas had come early. I want to learn to walk on ceilings. He announced. Kyuubi grinned. Sure, it's not that hard. Naruto frowned at his heart. He rubbed his head feeling the lumps from that morning, and I've got the bumps to prove it. Kyuubi just giggled. Don't worry, you'll definitely be able to do it by the time you go to bed. She gave him a grin that promised suffering. Naruto shivered. Oh boy, he mumbled quietly to himself. Naruto yawned as he wandered around his bedroom, his body more or less working on its own, slowly pulling on his clothes for school. Remember, not to give away your extra training. Kyuubi reminded. Naruto blinked slowly. Huh? What? He mumbled blearily. Kyuubi gave a gentle giggle. Oi. She shouted. Wake up. Naruto jumped, dropping his jacket to the floor, his hand getting halfway to the kunai holster on his ankle before it stopped. Oh. He mumbled. It's just you, Kyuubi-chan. He took a few deep breaths to calm his nerves. You scared me. He stated bluntly. Kyuubi giggled. I could tell. She pointed out, clearly amused. You should have been alert. Naruto growled in frustration. I would have been, but you ran me into the ground with your training yesterday. He retorted hotly. Kyuubi just shook her head. You think that was bad? She asked rhetorically. I haven't even started yet. Naruto gave a soft groan, his limbs still ached, even with Kyuubi-chan's healing factor. So what were you saying? He asked. Huh? Oh right. Kyuubi had been distracted by planning how she was going to tour. Train Naruto. I was telling you to hide the results of our training. Don't show anyone what you can do. Naruto frowned. Hide what? He questioned. I didn't even learn any new jutsu. Kyuubi smirked. No, but you did learn how to wall walk even with my distractions. Distractions? Naruto yelled incredulously. You recited those damn pervy books. Kyuubi giggled. So it served its purpose, and you got to learn a bit about girls at the same time. Her face twisted into a smirk as Naruto's face lit up with a blush. You can also ceiling walk without falling too often. She smirked gently, basking in the memories of Naruto's impacts with the floor. And on top of all that, you started some physical training, and I taught you how to enhance senses with chakra. Naruto nodded. So I shouldn't walk on walls or ceilings? Or enhance any senses? He asked. Kyuubi thought about it for a second. Don't show your improved chakra control if you can help it. I'll agree with not wall or ceiling walking, but I want you to enhance your senses of hearing and sight. She said. Naruto frowned. Alright, but why do you want me to enhance them? I thought you wanted me to keep it a secret. Kyuubi nodded. I do, try not to act on your improved senses. However, this way we can work on your chakra control throughout the day, and hopefully you can get to a point where you can keep all your senses enhanced pretty much permanently. Naruto nodded. Oh. That makes sense. He agreed softly before smiling. Thanks for all the training, Kyuubi-chan. Kyuubi waved his thanks off, feigning indifference. It's my pleasure. She replied. Naruto nodded. Can I learn a jutsu tonight? Just one. Please. Kyuubi giggled and sighed in resignation. Alright, but just one for now. You really need much better chakra control to use any jutsu well. Naruto had a huge grin on his face. He had heard nothing after her agreement. Woo. He whooped happily. You're the best. He announced. Kyuubi smiled. His praise always brought a gentle warm feeling that rolled across her chest. Alright, enhance your senses. She instructed. Naruto nodded, pushing the chakra into his ears and eyes, the world suddenly coming into much sharper focus, and his hearing suddenly sharpening and improving. He frowned a little. The exact level of his hearing and sight was fluctuating, and the effect made him feel a little nauseous. He had been able to maintain one improved sense at a stable and manageable level throughout his physical training last night, but maintaining two was proving to be much harder. He waited 30 seconds, but the effect didn't lessen unless he focused on evening it out. Don't worry about it. Kyuubi cut in. It should go away once your body gets used to maintaining two senses at this level. Just head off to school. Naruto nodded slowly. This was going to get annoying very quickly if it didn't sort itself out like Kyuubi-chan said it would. Alright, how long do you think that will take? He asked as he stepped outside and began his journey to school. I don't really know, it's different for everyone, but given your level of chakra and the effect of my yaki, I would guess 4 hours or so. Kyuubi replied nonchalantly. Naruto gave a loud groan. I think you like seeing me suffer. He mumbled. Kyuubi grinned. And if I do? She asked, her voice brimming with overemphasized curiosity. Naruto shook his head and chuckled under his breath, conceding this round to Kyuubi-chan, although she did have thousands of years more experience than him, so it was a little bit of an unfair fight. So, what jutsu are you going to teach me? He asked after a moment of silence. Kyuubi suppressed a giggle, she had been waiting for him to ask that inevitable question. Well. I'm not really sure that it has a name, but it's perfect for you. There are no hand signs. She paused. No hand signs, that's an idea. She muttered. What? Naruto asked impatiently. No. Nothing, just a theory for tonight. She replied. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, there are no hand signs, and no control is necessary, it's just pure brute force. Very destructive and very simple. I'm sure you like it. She giggled softly. Naruto beamed. It sounds awesome. He declared happily. There was a pause. Hey. Wait. Were you insulting me? There was another pause. No. Kyuubi replied, her voice dripping with sweetness and innocence. Naruto frowned. You were. He shot back as he landed in the academy groups and wandered inside, almost totally oblivious to the world as he bantered with Kyuubi. Was not. Kyuubi replied. Were too. Naruto accused. Not. Were. Not. Were. Were. Not. Wait, damn it. Naruto grumbled as he stepped into the classroom. Stupid damn fox. He muttered angrily. Slightly surprised to find his enhanced senses were still in place despite the argument with Kyuubi completely sidetracking him, although the nauseous feeling that accompanied them was less welcome. Naruto took a few steps towards the seat next to Sakura purely on force of habit before he stopped and turned, walking over to Hinata and sitting next to her with a large grin. Hey. He declared happily, forcing a blush off his cheeks as choice segments of the Icha series decided to pop into his head, much to his horror and Kyuubi's amusement. Hinata gave a small squeak. How could she look him in the eyes after kissing him at the end of their date? Hey. She responded. Naruto leant towards Hinata. Want to go on another date sometime this week? He asked enthusiastically, a faint pinkish tinge finding its way to his cheeks. This time he had a fair idea what a date was. Yes. Hinata replied immediately. Naruto-kun wanted another date. Even with her fainting last time, he was going to give her another chance. She swore to herself she wouldn't mess this one up. Naruto leant forward and pulled Hinata into a quick hug, chuckling gently as he heard a quiet eep from his girlfriend. He blushed. Had Hinata known what she was saying and what it meant when she agreed to that? Hinata-chan? He asked a little hesitantly. He couldn't understand why the thought of her turning him down filled him with dread. However, with the ease of years of practice, he kept his voice light-hearted. Naruto's voice sounded odd to Hinata. It was a tone she had heard many times before. He used it all the time around town and during school. But now she had seen him in a more unguarded moment. It sounded wrong to her, false even. She couldn't quite put her finger on what exactly was the problem, but she knew there was something wrong. What is it? Naruto K.K.kun. Naruto took a small breath before continuing. When you agreed to be my girlfriend, you did know what that meant, didn't you? He asked, dropping his voice to a low whisper because Iruka had started teaching. Hinata's face lit up with a gentle blush. Why? Yes. She replied cautiously, her mind working frantically to try and work out why he had asked. Why? She stuttered out once she was unable to find a sensible answer. Naruto caught the huge sigh of relief before it escaped his lips. His smile shifted slightly, becoming more real, rather than the pseudo-smile that he usually had plastered on his face. Why? He echoed her last question to himself. Hinata, thinking he had misheard her, nodded yes. Why did want to K. No. She repeated, taking note that whatever had been wrong with his voice before seemed to be gone now. Naruto's brow furrowed in thought. Hinata blushed slightly harder. Naruto-kun was cute when he was thinking. Well, he was cute all the time. Well, I guess you just. Naruto frowned, trying and failing to articulate his feelings for Hinata. Well, you could do so much better than me. He blurted out a little louder than he had intended, attracting the attention of a few people sitting around them, although if Iruka heard him he didn't show it. Naruto frowned gently as he picked up the faint whispers of the people who had heard his outburst. At least he picked up the fractured pieces of the whispered conversations, as his hearing frequently dipped under the level required to hear it. Damn it. He cursed himself. If people found out they were dating, then they might start to hate her too. He glanced worriedly at Hinata, who was in an almost trance-like state as she struggled to comprehend Naruto's words. He had it backwards. He was too good for her, not the other way around. There was a heavy pause. Naruto watching Hinata out of the corner of his eyes. He honestly didn't know what to hope for. On the one hand, he knew Hinata could do better and he wanted her to be happy, no matter what, so shouldn't he want her to find the guy who could make her the happiest? But then he also desperately wanted her to say she would stay with him. Cold terror gripped his heart at the thought of her leaving. He didn't know what he would do if she left. They hadn't really been friends or anything for very long, but she was already irreplaceable to Naruto. Felt that if she left, his world would just fall apart. He had to suppress a sigh as he realized he really didn't know exactly what he wanted. Well, no, that was a lie. He wanted to be able to reconcile both, making Hinata as happy as she could be and keeping them as a couple. Hinata gave Naruto an incredulous look. You're too good for me? She hissed quietly, her surprise clearly evident in her tone. Naruto nodded. Yeah, of course you are. You're like the heir of the Hyugas and really nice and pretty and everything. He gave Hinata a large smile as she struggled against the fast approaching blackness of unconsciousness, her hands balled into fists as she once again resorted to pain to keep her mind from shutting down. And look at me, I'm an orphan, a total nobody. I'm nowhere near what you deserve, Hinata-chan. His voice held no sadness as he put himself down, repeating back just a very select few of the insults that had rained upon him since before he could remember. Hinata, however, could hear that he had reverted back to that wrong smile and tone. Frowning, she shook her head vehemently. No. I'm not too good f for you. She said, determined to put him straight. How could he think so little of himself? Why you're too good for me. Naruto blinked in surprise. Hinata response, leaving him incapable of making anything other than a few odd strangled noises for a second or two before he found his voice. What do you mean? I know you're better than me. He insisted. Hinata shook her head. I'm not. She didn't want to argue with Naruto, but he had to understand how she saw him. R2. Not. R2. Not. This exchange continued for roughly a minute, both of them slowly gaining volume, and Hinata's stutter slowly fading as she got more and more into the argument, a fact that caught Naruto's curiosity. Do. Not. Iruka's coughing broke up their argument. Hinata, I'm surprised at you. I'd expect this kind of thing from Naruto but not you. He reprimanded. This is your only warning, so don't let me catch you talking again. He shot Naruto a glare to show he was serious, but felt a verbal warning would be enough to placate Hinata, who had turned deep red the moment she realized she had shouted a response to Naruto. Naruto stifled his giggles as Iruka went back to teaching. Hey Hinata-chan. He asked, dropping his voice back down to a soft whisper. Kyuubi-chan had told him not to ask about her fainting, but he couldn't remember her telling him not to ask about her stuttering, and for Naruto, that was as good as explicit permission. Hinata's eyes flicked to Iruka for a second, as though afraid he could somehow sense she was going to talk to Naruto again. Yes? She asked hesitantly, her eyes constantly flicking to Iruka as she replied. Naruto sensed her nervousness and gave a quiet chuckle. Don't worry about Iruka-sensei. He definitely won't be able to hear us if he can't hear Ino-san arguing with Sakura-san about Sasuke team's favorite food. Hinata's brow furrowed as she strained her ears, picking up nothing more than very faint whispers from the girl's vague direction. Wow, must ha. H. Have awesome he. Hearing Naruto K. What part of don't act on your enhanced senses didn't you understand? Kyuubi sighed, shaking her head softly. Naruto smiled at Hinata and gave another little chuckle, rubbing the back of his head, a very faint pinkish hue on his cheeks. I guess I do. He replied a little sheepishly. I'm sorry, I just kinda forgot. Besides, are you listening to them? It's hilarious. He blinked in surprise as he realized something. He had heard the entire conversation. His hearing had leveled out now. His eye was still a little blurry, however, but hey, he was improving. WH. What is it? Hinata asked, curious as to why Naruto had had a surprised expression on his face a moment ago. Naruto paused. What's what? He asked, confused. In his head, Kyuubi gave a soft sigh and shook her head. She had seen the suspicious glances from Iruka the previous day, so she was trying to keep contact in public to a minimum, at least until Naruto could disguise the fact they were talking. Look, sir. Su. Surprised a second, Hinata explained. Crap. Not good. Naruto panicked. What do I tell her? Sorry, I was just talking to my demon. Ah, sorry. He said, chuckling nervously. Sakura-san just said something weird. He grinned. Oh yeah, I'm a genius. Kyuubi giggled. Sure you are. She replied, oh, and you can't see, but I'm rolling my eyes. She added after a brief pause. Naruto gave a small huff. Stupid smartass fox. He grumbled, although his tone lacked any real venom. Secretly, he relished the challenge of trying to beat Kyuubi-chan at her own game, and these little exchanges were great fun. Not that he'd ever let her know that. I'm a vixen, not a fox. Kyuubi pointed out helpfully. Naruto gave a subdued growl before turning his attention back to Hinata. At least she was nice to him. Love you too. Kyuubi responded, her smirk evident in her tone. Hinata nodded. Oh. She mumbled what where why you going to as? Ask me. Naruto took a moment to recompose himself before replying, I was wondering why you stutter all the time. He said, noticing Hinata's face falling. He leaned forward. It's not that I don't like it. He whispered frantically, I'm just curious because when we were arguing you stopped stuttering completely. He had assumed it was some kind of disability or disease or something. He had even entertained the idea she was allergic to him, although the old man had informed him that that wasn't the case, but now he wanted to know what the real cause was. Hinata blushed and averted her eyes, staring intently at her desk. She mumbled quietly, well, she just couldn't manage to force the reason out, and part of her really didn't want to tell Naruto-kun anyway. She wouldn't dump her own weakness and problems on him. Naruto gave a soft grin. You don't want to tell me? He asked. He understood perfectly the reasons why she would withhold the information from him, but unfortunately that just made him want to find out more. Hinata gave a small sigh of relief at Naruto's understanding, her relief tinged with surprise that Naruto seemed to understand her emotions perfectly. Sorry, she said, bowing her head further. Naruto waved her apology off. Don't worry about it, you can tell me whenever you're ready. He said, sorry if I made you think of something sad or painful. He added after a brief pause to consider the things that he kept to himself. Well, between himself and Kyuubi-chan, he amended. That's better. Kyuubi said happily. Well, I can't exactly stop you learning something now, can I? Naruto responded. Kyuubi paused. You can, I thought I taught you how already. Wait. What? I can. Naruto exclaimed, barely catching the words before they burst from his lips. Yes, you just need to. Actually, I'll teach you after school. Kyuubi changed her mind, reminding herself that any conversation much longer than this one would probably attract some very unwanted attention. Why? Komen, teach me now. Please. Naruto whined petulantly. Kyuubi shook her head. Talk to me after school, and I'll explain why I can't teach you now. Naruto frowned softly. Fine. He huffed, he hated waiting. It was so boring. Hinata gave Naruto a gentle smile. Thank you. She whispered softly and tenderly. Naruto's cheeks lit up with a soft blush. That gentle tender tone made his heart skip a beat, and the ever-present butterflies in his stomach decide to go into overdrive. He gave a soft sigh, his attention drifting across the classroom as he listened into various conversations before finally settling on Iruka. He and Hinata shared a few glances that left Naruto's cheeks a gentle pink and Hinata's various shades of deep red as they sat for the rest of the lesson in a comfortable silence, merely basking in each other's presence. Kyuubi gave a soft smile, pleased at how Naruto and Hinata's relationship was going. A soft blush appeared on her face as those thoughts inevitably lead to thoughts about Naruto and herself dating and other more intimate activities. She frowned softly to herself. Hinata would have to be eased into the idea of sharing Naruto so that when she got out of this stupid seal, she glared at the iron bars of the cage, she could quickly take up her place at his side. She sat down, leaning back, and sighed. She would need to come up with a plan to ease Hinata into sharing and probably convince Naruto to put it into action. Her face split into a small grin. This would be interesting. The rest of the school day passed fairly quickly, Naruto and Hinata holding quiet conversations. Often started by Naruto asking Hinata to clarify something for him. After all, he had 2 or so years of slacking off and prejudiced teachers to make up for. Although Hinata's responses were always accompanied by a nervous glance at Iruka, something Naruto found slightly amusing, he could never really figure out what was so bad about detention. Naruto's eyesight had finally decided to level out about half an hour before the end of school. His victory yell had interrupted Iruka's retelling of Zabuza's attempt to overthrow the Mizukage and almost netted him a detention. Kyuubi spent this time slowly running through the possibilities in her mind. If could convince Naruto to be nice to Ino, then she had no doubt the blonde girl would ask him out fairly quickly. Her outgoing nature and obvious lust for attention would ensure that outcome. However, she doubted Hinata would accept Naruto going out with another girl merely because he was asked. The idea would have to be put forward without another girl in the equation. She briefly entertained the idea of Naruto bringing the idea of sharing up as a hypothetical before putting the plan of seducing Ino into action, but that idea had been discarded as it would look far too suspicious and planned. She knew Hinata would be willing to overlook a lot of things because she loved Naruto, but there was no way she would overlook something that blatant. This was the point Kyuubi's thoughts were at as Naruto exited the academy, a slight blush still lingering from the goodbye hug he had given Hinata. The poor girl had looked almost drunk as she had begun her own trip home. Kyuubi gave a growl of annoyance. She needed some way of making it seem the sharing idea was brought up by a third party. Preferably making it look like a surprise to Naruto too, that way the subject could be brought up and discussed in advance without any major suspicion. What is it, Kyuubi-chan? Naruto inquired, curious as to the annoyed growl he had heard from his tenant. Kyuubi had to take a moment to snap out of her thoughts before replying, oh nothing, just thinking. That's all. She replied smoothly. Naruto gave a small nod. Oh, what about? You sounded annoyed by something. Kyuubi was caught slightly off guard. She hadn't expected Naruto to be able to read her emotions that easily. Well, it's a bit silly. She paused for a second as if a little bashful. I just miss having a real body every so often. She came up with a quick lie. Well, pseudo lie. Her lack of any real body was never that far from her mind, with an ease and smoothness that only came with practice. Kyuubi immediately regretted her choice of words, however, as Naruto's face fell, his pace slowing to a crawl. I'm sorry. He said softly, I'm really sorry. Kyuubi gave another growl of annoyance, this one directed at herself. Now she had gone and dumped another burden on Naruto's conscience. Of course she still couldn't understand how he could think he was the one who needed to apologize, but she would deal with his little martyr complex later, don't worry about it. She reassured, I'm sure we can think of something later. She really wanted to give him a reassuring grin, but wouldn't risk pulling him into his mindscape whilst he was jumping between rooftops. Naruto nodded, forcing the sadness down and adding it to the bowl of hurt, along with all the other pain and sadness he had repressed or forced aside in his fairly short life. He heard the slightly depressed edge in Kyuubi-chan's voice. If he made her sad by being sad, then he wouldn't let her see him sad. So what's this jutsu you're going to teach me? He declared, forcing his mind onto a more happy and productive line of thought. Kyuubi giggled, what makes you think I'll tell you any more than I did this morning? Besides, you'll be learning it in a little while, so be patient. Naruto frowned and pouted, picking up his pace as he reached and began to ascend the Hokage monument steps, but patient is boring. Kyuubi giggled a little harder. She definitely agreed with Naruto's blunt assessment. Waiting for things really did suck, doubly so if you knew they would be good. I know it is, but it's still something you have to learn. Naruto gave a small nod also. Why did my sight take so much longer to level out than my hearing? Kyuubi smiled, oh that's easy. You enhanced your hearing last night, so your body was more used to having that sense enhanced. That meant your chakra settled much quicker than it did in your eyes. His question answered, Naruto lapsed into silence, his mind focusing on how to give Kyuubi-chan a body again. Kyuubi was also scheming and quickly recovered her chain of thought from before. There was only one thing that fit the criteria she had found herself with, and that was somehow invoking the Clan Restoration Act. She smiled to herself. If she could get it invoked, then it would work perfectly for her purposes, as well as allowing Naruto to marry both her and Hinata. However, there were some significant hurdles she had to overcome to get that law invoked. She had to either prove Naruto was the last member of a clan with enough significance to warrant saving, or Naruto had to have a Kekkei Genkai, and he had to awaken it, preferably both, because then the council's hand would be more or less forced in favor of the Kra. She supposed they were both possible. After all, Naruto was an orphan, so his parents could have been anybody. However, she really doubted he had a Kekkei Genkai of any kind. With all he had been through coupled with her influence, if he possessed any such ability, it should have long since awakened, and the notable absence of any special ability that couldn't be traced back to her spoke volumes against such a scenario. She gave a gentle sigh. She would have to have a good dig through Naruto's earliest memories in search of his lineage and pray to Kami that it was someone worthy enough to warrant evoking that law. Naruto quickly found the spot he had trained the previous night, the number of tree he had knocked down trying to learn to stick himself to surfaces with chakra, making locating it easy. Okay, I'm back where I was before, he announced. Kyuubi nodded him. You're going to be using quite a bit of my Yaki tonight, so we should probably be putting more distance between us and the town. Naruto nodded. Oh. What is Yaki anyway? Yaki is what I have instead of chakra. It's that red energy you were calling on towards the end of our last major training session. Kyuubi replied, giggling gently to herself. Naruto's control had been, and still was, bad enough that he could empty his monstrous chakra reserves in just a few hours of tree walking. It had definitely improved through their training. Kyuubi knew that much, but honestly that wasn't saying much. Naruto paled slightly. That stuff hurt. He yelled. It had felt like someone was burning his feet from the inside whilst he had been using that strange energy. Kyuubi nodded. And that's why you need to use more, she declared with an air of finality that went straight over Naruto's head. What do you mean? How can it hurting be a good thing? He snapped, calling on his anger to quell the feeling of betrayal that was threatening to shatter his composure. Kyuubi gave a small sigh. My Yaki is incredibly powerful, however it is also incredibly dangerous to humans. Since I'm sealed inside you, you've been in contact with a tiny trickle of Yaki throughout your life, and therefore you have some resistance to it. Otherwise the amount you used probably would have killed you and definitely would have rendered your legs unusable. Then why the hell do you want me to use it? Naruto screamed. You just want to hurt me like the rest of them. The feeling of betrayal coupled with a strange tearing sensation in his heart, shattering the mask he usually used to hold back his negative emotions and paranoia. Kyuubi gasped, tears springing unbidden to her eyes. No. She exclaimed desperately. I want you to use it because I want to keep you safe. I would never hurt you. I couldn't. I love you. Kyuubi screamed back, her mental voice sounding strained, as though it would break at the lightest touch. If you continue to use my Yaki, you can acclimate yourself to it bit by bit, and eventually you'll be able to use it without hurting yourself. Do you have any idea how powerful you would be if you could utilize Yaki that way? She finished her explanation in a slightly softer, but still urgent voice, her tone pleading with Naruto to understand and trust her again. Naruto was stunned into silence by Kyuubi's emotional outburst, tears sliding from his eyes. The first coherent thought he managed was, I'm an idiot. No, you're not. Kyuubi growled, her vision flashing red as she screamed silent curses at the village that had done this to such an innocent soul. At that moment she wanted nothing more than to level Konoha and everyone in it, with 3, maybe 4, exceptions. She wasn't really sure whether or not Iruka had earned her mercy. He might just be helping Naruto because it was his job, not through any real apathy for the child. Kyuubi-chan. Naruto's soft, barely audible whisper pulled Kyuubi off her destructive train of thoughts, the red veil receding, but still dancing on the edges of her vision, as though taunting her with the knowledge that with one slip, she would once again be pulled under and rendered a being of pure destruction and malice. Yes. She replied equally softly. I'm sorry. He said, clenching his fists. He was absolutely furious with himself. The hurt in her tone had been so clear when he had accused her of betrayal. He had broken his promise and had hurt one of his precious people. And he had done it on purpose. I didn't mean it. I just. Kyuubi shook her head vehemently, although Naruto couldn't see the gesture. It's okay. She reassured him tenderly. I understand, you don't need to apologize. Naruto gave the tiniest of nods and seemed to be about to reply before pausing and shaking his head. There was a pregnant pause before he spoke up again. Did you mean it? He asked, his voice sounding more vulnerable than Kyuubi had ever heard it before. It was the first time she had heard him sounding like the abused child he was. Mean what? Kyuubi questioned. She didn't know exactly what he was asking, and she was damned if she would answer such an obviously important question without knowing exactly what he was asking. Naruto took a deep breath, forcing as much emotion as he could back under his mask and inside where it belonged. When you said you loved me. He clarified, his voice much stronger than before, but still sounding far more vulnerable than he would have liked. Kyuubi's face jumped up to a heavy blush as she gently pulled at Naruto's mind, willing him to join her in his mindscape, a pull that Naruto did nothing to resist, knowing what it meant. Naruto's body slumped against a tree as his conciseness left. Naruto materialized right outside the bars of Kyuubi's seal and slipped through the bars. After a second of getting his bearings, he quickly spotted Kyuubi, who was standing a little distance away, her face a deep red, much to Naruto's surprise. He hadn't pegged her as one who would blush that much. So did you mean it? He asked, once again mentally berating himself for the emotion in his voice. He wanted to be sure this was her decision and not affected by his wants and desires. Kyuubi took a step forward, her body shrinking so she was the same height as Naruto, a sight that Naruto found to be slightly unnerving. I did mean it. She said gently, the volume of her voice belying the weight of emotion it carried. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki. She leant forward and gave Naruto a soft kiss, her lips brushing against his. Naruto kissed back on pure instinct. Everything felt slightly numb as one thought echoed through his head. She loves me. Someone actually loves me. Kyuubi broke the kiss, their lips separating, but staying mere inches apart as Kyuubi gazed into his eyes, waiting for a reply from her blonde carrier. She would have been tempted to giggle at the shock written on his face, were she not aware of the abuse that had caused it. Naruto spluttered, struggling for words, managing only the odd nonsensical sound as he stared into Kyuubi's eyes once again. Tears blurred his vision, only this time they were tears of happiness. Finally giving up on words, he darted forward, pulling Kyuubi into a deep hug and his lips reconnecting with hers in a desperate bid to ensure she was really there, although Naruto's innocence and no small amount of restraint on Kyuubi's part kept it fairly chaste. Taking a few deep breaths, Naruto finally managed to regain his composure and gave her a beaming smile, his eyes still shining with tears. I love you too, Kyuubi-chan. He said, all traces of his previous sadness now thoroughly exterminated from his tone, and thank you. For everything, and again I'm really sorry for ever doubting you. He paused and gave a slightly rueful chuckle. I seem to be saying sorry a lot at the moment. Kyuubi blushed softly and gave Naruto a reassuring smile in return. Don't worry, it's already forgotten. She replied tenderly. She really wanted to peruse her relationship with Naruto further, but seeing that her host was still dazed, she decided to give Naruto some time to recover mentally and adjust to the idea that someone loved him. As sad and angry as it made her that he even had to make this transition before pushing their boundaries. So how about you get back to your body and we return to training? She suggested with a soft, slightly scheming grin, knowing and exploiting his weakness for training and jutsu. Naruto gave a nod and a grin. Yeah. Let's get back to training. I got an awesome new jutsu to learn. He announced exuberantly, pausing for a second before hugging Kyuubi-chan tightly and, after another pause, giving her another little kiss. Pulling away, his cheeks tinged a soft pink, Naruto gave Kyuubi a broad honest smile. Oh yeah, and before I go. He muttered to himself, now grinning like a madman. Wait here for a sec. He said, rushing back towards the bars of the seal and slipping out. Observing the bars critically, he quickly located the piece of paper that had the kanji for seal inscribed on it, around halfway up the gate, and easily 3 times Naruto's height off the ground. The kanji inscribed on the paper pulsed slowly, with an almost serene blue light. Ah, there you are. He muttered to himself. What are you doing? Kyuubi asked, observing Naruto worriedly. Please say Naruto-sama isn't planning what I think he is, she prayed silently. Naruto gave a conspiratorial giggle. It's a secret. He announced as he gazed up at the seal. How am I going to reach it all the way up there? He mused. Kyuubi giggled. Just tell me what you're planning. She insisted. Naruto, in his excitement, didn't hear the fear and worry that had edged into her voice. He appeared to consider his reply for a second before grinning. If I told you, it wouldn't be a secret. He turned his attention back to the seal and frowned. He needed to be able to reach the stupid thing. Naruto was surprised for a second as the seal began to slide down the bars towards him, although the surprise was quickly quashed as he reminded himself he was in his head. Naruto's grin was at full force as the seal finally came to a stop in front of him. Hey. Wait. What are you doing? Kyuubi yelled frantically. Naruto frowned in confusion as he reached out. You said you wanted to be free, so I'm setting you free. He stated as if it were the simplest thing in the world. He turned his attention back to the seal grabbing one edge. No. Wait. Kyuubi screamed, dashing towards the blonde, however she was too late and Naruto gave the seal a sharp tug. He was finally going to free Kyuubi-chan. Then the pain hit. It flooded all his senses. He was vaguely aware of hearing someone screaming. Was it him? All he knew was searing agony. It was as though he was being burned from inside and out at the same moment. The pain intensified further and for a moment all Naruto knew was absolute agony, then he knew nothing. Naruto's eyes fluttered open slowly, his vision swimming for a moment before the night sky came into focus. What happened? He groaned, pushing himself up. Every muscles in his body was aching and his head felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. Suddenly realization struck Kyuubi-chan. He gasped, frantically whirling around to try and locate her, grimacing as the sudden movement exacerbated the pain in his head. His worry mounted. Kyuubi-chan. He cried out desperately, where are you? Still in here. Came the reply from Kyuubi. Her voice sounded slightly distorted, making it impossible for Naruto to pick out her emotions, and he could hear a steady crackling reminiscent of radio static in the background. Naruto frowned. Damn it. He swore, I thought I broke the stupid seal. You should be free. Why are you still trapped in there? He paused for a second before adding, and what's with your voice? There was another small pause before Kyuubi responded, you didn't destroy the seal. You only did a little damage before blacking out, but you did enough to destabilize it. The seal was unraveling itself, so I had to repair it. As for why we're getting static, distortion and delays in communication. She paused for a second, considering how to word the response, since she doubted Naruto would really understand much of the reason. Well, put simply, the seal was the medium for our communication, and since its damage our link also suffered. She offered. Naruto, however, heard nothing past her admitting she had fixed the seal. Why? He screamed, I thought you wanted to be free. So would you fix the damn seal? The emotions in Kyuubi's response were lost to the damaged seal. Because you would have died if I didn't. So? You're the only person who'd care. I'd gladly give my life so you could be free. Naruto's response stunned Kyuubi into silence momentarily. I'm not the only person who'd care. She responded softly. What about Hinata? Or Am? Or Tucci? Naruto paused for a second before nodding slowly. The realization that there were people would actually mourn his passing, however short the list may have been, hitting him like a ton of bricks. But you're still trapped. I will get you free. He responded, his voice full of conviction, and if my life is what it takes, then so be it. No. Kyuubi responded sharply, I won't allow it. I want to be free, but it's not worth losing you. Naruto froze, his argument stopped in his tracks as Kyuubi's response took all the wind from his sails. Tears sprung unbidden to his eyes. Thank you. He mumbled softly, his chest heaving with silent sobs. He had never in a million years even dared hoped he would mean this much to someone. He closed his eyes and tried to join Kyuubi in his mindscape, wanting to be with the one who he loved and who loved him back, but he was repelled by some invisible barrier. Why can't I come into the mindscape? He asked, a little bit of panic entering his voice. He finally had someone to love, and now he couldn't see her or be with her. He tried a few more times in quick succession, and the few seconds it took for Kyuubi's scratchy response to filter through the link, each failed attempt causing the terror he felt to rise. I'm stopping you from coming in. Kyuubi said, I'm sorry, but you can't come into your mindscape at the moment. I'll let you know as soon as it's safe. Naruto's brow crinkled in confusion even as the sigh of relief left his mouth, the terror draining out to be replaced with confusion. What do you mean as soon as it's safe? He queried, his heart leaping back into his mouth as he considered what she could mean. You're okay, aren't you? Kyuubi giggled softly at his worry. Yes, I'm fine, don't worry. She said, a small sigh of frustration escaping her lips. The seal suffered extensive damage before I could stabilize it, and right now it's only barely holding together. There was another sigh. I think that if your soul joined mine in here it would overburden the seal, and it was begin unraveling again. Oh. Naruto responded blankly. So does that mean I won't be able to see you again? He asked, keeping his panic carefully hidden, not that he needed to with a bad connection making their voices more or less unreadable. Kyuubi considered the question for a second. No, I think I will be able to strengthen the seal again, given a few hours to work on it. We should be able to meet up again tomorrow morning hopefully. Naruto's face lit up. Great. He announced enthusiastically. So why did pulling on the seal hurt so much? His body shivered, phantom pain assaulting his nerves at the memory. It was my Yauki. Kyuubi explained, the seal normally slowly filters it into your chakra system, your normal chakra is about 1% Yauki. This is also the reason your reserves are so large. Naruto frowned. What? How would that make my chakra reserves larger? And what does this have to do with the pain? Kyuubi sighed. You really need to know the differences between chakra and Yauki for that. She paused for a second before adding, I'll explain later. Preempting Naruto's request, as for why you felt pain, you broke the seal. Imagine it like the seal is a dam, and you put a hole in it. Naruto's eyes widened. So I got a load of Yauki at once? He questioned. Kyuubi grinned and nodded. Yeah, you got almost half a tail's worth in under 10 seconds before I managed to stop the flow. I managed to purge most of it from your system before it could do any major damage, but there's still a good amount left. Silently Kyuubi was thanking her lucky stars that they had been far enough away from the village that no one had noticed the spike in her Yauki, or at least if they noticed they hadn't come to investigate. I'd imagine you're currently working at around 5 or 6% Yauki. She paused for a second before continuing. That's why your body is aching at the moment, your chakra is poisoning you from the inside out. What? Naruto yelled. Let's do some training. Kyuubi interrupted Naruto. If you work all the Yauki out of your system you should be fine. It'll be the first time your muscles hurt less after training than they did beforehand. She joked, attempting to lighten the mood a little. Naruto nodded. So what should I do? He asked, a shadow of a grin gracing his lips. Free climbing, of course. Kyuubi responded. Try to find the very minimum amount needed to climb up the tree. Oh, and be careful, you have quite a bit more chakra than you did before. I would hate for you to fall on your ass like last time. Although he couldn't hear it in her voice, Naruto just knew that last bit had been sarcastic. He nodded in acceptance. He couldn't have that much extra chakra after all. She had said what, half a tail of Yauki? And she had 9 tails in total, so half a tail wouldn't be that much. Of course this logic fell apart when he once again found himself launched from the tree he had attempted to climb by his foot. Landing in a tangled, cursing heap a few feet away, he observed the impressive crater his feet had left in the tree and tried to figure out exactly how much more chakra he had. Naruto had managed to adjust to the extra chakra in his system by the time he had managed to work off excess Yauki. However, his control had suffered and he hadn't been able to climb a tree without leaving deep footprints in his wake. Kyuubi had been almost totally silent as he had trained her focus on reconstructing and reinforcing the seal to make it as safe as possible. His training done, Naruto made his way wearily back towards his apartment, every one of his limbs aching gently as a result of both his workout and the lingering effects of Kyuubi's Yauki. As soon as he got inside, he stripped off his jacket, laying it almost reverently on his desk, and kicked off his sandals and trousers before collapsing into his bed with a contented sigh. Naruto quickly fell asleep, although without Kyuubi pulling him into the seal, he quickly found himself caught in the throes of one of his more prolific nightmares. Kyuubi's face twisted into a frown as she sensed Naruto's distress. On the one hand, Naruto was suffering, and Kyuubi desperately wanted to protect him from suffering any more than he already had, but the fact that she could sense this emotion was a good thing. It proved that her repairs were working and the seal was regaining its functionality and integrity, even if it was rather slapdash in places. She closed her eyes and concentrated on thoughts that calmed her, hoping that her modifications had allowed Naruto to sense her emotions. Sure enough, after about a minute she felt Naruto's psyche relax, the nightmare receding, for now. Giving a small satisfied nod, Kyuubi turned her attention back to the seal. It would only need a little more reinforcement to support Naruto's soul as well as hers. The damage hadn't been quite as bad as she had initially feared. Kyuubi quickly finished fixing the seal. It was definitely not as strong as it had once been, and she could almost definitely force her way out if she so desired, but it was perfect for the circumstances. She smiled, proud of what she had achieved with the minimal resources available, although she would definitely have to warn Naruto about letting anybody who might know seals see his chest, since even an amateur would see how little actually held the whole thing together at this point. She paused for a moment, unable to decide what she should do. She wanted to talk, amongst other things, with Naruto, and the seal was now safe for her to bring him in, but on the other hand, this was the perfect time to sift through his memories to see if she can make any progress with her scheme to put Naruto under the craw. She finally decided that she could talk to Naruto anytime, and she would see him in the morning for sure, but a perfect opportunity to search Naruto's memories without alerting him probably wouldn't present itself again for a long time. Her mind made up, she quickly made her way to his memory bank, looking down the corridor undaunted by the seemingly endless array of doors that ran along both walls. She never really enjoyed prying through people's minds. She preferred a more direct approach to bend people to her will, but that didn't mean she had no experience at it. She closed her eyes concentrating on the words Naruto's mother, hoping that would be enough to locate some memories. Normally you knew what you were looking for, and this process was much easier. However, she didn't even have a name for Naruto's parents, and the memories were among Naruto's earliest, making it even harder to call them up. She slowly opened her eyes, seeing doors whipping past her in a blur, although there was no sound to accompany the motion. Millions of doors blurred past in a few seconds before they suddenly snapped to a complete stop and still making no noise. Rather than the endless corridor of doors, Kyuubi found herself with 4 solid doors, flanked by 20 or so other doors that appeared almost totally insubstantial, like a hologram or projection of a door, rather than a solid object. Kyuubi smiled softly as she observed her options. The solid doors represented perfectly clear memories, whereas the shimmering incorporeal doors showed the memory was fragmented, incomplete or damaged in some way. She honestly hadn't expected to see even one solid door, and to see 4 was incredible. However, something was quite clearly wrong here. The worse condition a memory was in, the less solid the doors looked, and the options here appeared to split into totally ruined or perfectly fine. The frustrated growl escaped her lips. Normally memories would decay with time, unless they were something the person held close to their heart, but Naruto couldn't even remember his mother, so they couldn't be cherished memories of her. That left the obvious question of what exactly they were memories of. She sighed. Well, only one way to find out, she muttered. Moving forward, she grabbed the handle of the first door to her left and found herself back when she had first met Naruto. A small shiver ran down her spine as she entered the memory, experiencing everything from Naruto's body. No matter how many times you visit memories, you never quite get over the overwhelming feeling of wrongness that comes with experiencing everything from inside somebody else's body. She watched their first meeting again from Naruto's point of view, her face lighting up and a tender warmth spreading through her body as she realized Naruto had adopted her as a kind of mother figure. He had never truly been alone, he had had her. She had watched over him and kept him safe just like a mom would. She left the memory at that point, blushing softly and feeling as though she had violated his trust in some way just by seeing that memory. Finding herself back in the corridor, she regarded the other 3 doors carefully. She was honored that Naruto thought of her as his mom and agreed with his reasoning to an extent, but with this new information, she wondered if these other 3 doors would be memories of her as well, rather than his biological mother. Shrugging it aside, she tried the next door along. The corridor disappeared in a whirl of black, and she found herself in Naruto's memory of last night. She left almost immediately, a pleased smile fighting with an annoyed frown. She needed information on Naruto's biological mother, not his memories of her, as heartwarming as they were. Letting the corridor swim into focus again, he turned to the 2 doors on her right. She wasn't going to risk entering the damaged memories at this point. Any experienced mind walker will tell you that you could become trapped in such a memory or even find your mind damaged in some way. It was considered a rule to avoid any memory that was more than 30% damaged, and from the condition of Naruto's doors, the memories they had contained were totally trashed. Naruto slipped out of bed and stretched, yawning softly, chuckling to himself as he realized he had fallen asleep in his clothes. Quickly shedding the clothing and throwing it into the washing basket, he opened his cupboard and pulled out another outfit, quickly getting dressed. Naruto was halfway through breakfast when he remembered Kyuubi telling him that the seal should be fixed by now. His face split into a wide grin, and he quickly wolfed down the rest of his, slightly stale, cereal. The meal devoured, he threw himself onto the couch and concentrated on his mindscape, finding himself pulled in almost immediately. The beaming Naruto walked swiftly down the corridor towards the seal, absolutely ecstatic. He could see Kyuubi-chan again. As the bars loomed, his quick pace slowed to a crawl, and a tiny gasp slipped out his lips. The once great bars were shattered and broken, huge cracks running across them. Some bars were snapped in half or missing sections, and the entire structure was bound with long reams of paper filled with kanji written in blood. The paper pulsing red with Kyuubi's yaki, and at the very center, surrounded by 4 much more complex seals, was the dilapidated remains of the original seal. It looked almost charred, and instead of the strong blue pulse Naruto had seen before, was merely giving off a feeble blue glow, flickering as though it could go out any moment. His breath caught in his throat. Was that Kyuubi-chan's blood? He continued forward slowly, afraid of what he might find beyond the seal, ducking under one of the lengths of paper, wary of touching the yaki-infused seals, both because he might break them and because the yaki could cause him pain. Once inside the seal, he quickly located Kyuubi lying on the ground, curled up, sleeping peacefully. A small serene smile took root on Naruto's face, and he stood there, watched her sleep for a little while, drinking in her proximity. However, this peaceful smile faded, to be replaced with a frown, as he thought about the conditions Kyuubi had to live in. It wasn't right. She was too nice to have to live like this. At the very least, she deserved a bed. In response to his mini rant, the floor beneath Kyuubi's sleeping form writhed and bubbled, slowly rising up, somehow flowing whilst retaining its solidity and forming a rough bed shape. Naruto blinked in surprise, his frown turning into a broad grin. He closed his eyes and focused harder on the bed, the stony material of the bed frame shifting and a pattern not unlike wood grain fading into view as the color slowly shifted to the light brown of polished wood. At the same time, the rest of the material began to slowly shift from a dark gray to a soft beige. The cross-hatching pattern forming across the material, and it got softer. Kyuubi's form sinking slightly into the newly formed mattress. Another quick bout of concentration yielded some sheets to cover the girl's sleeping form. Observing the results of his discovery, Naruto's beamed, "Hey Kyuubi-chan. Good morning," he said, enthusiastically wanting to share what he could do with her. Kyuubi yawned and stretched as Naruto's instant call slowly roused her. She placed a hand on the mattress and froze. "When did the floor get so soft? It was stone, wasn't it?" She pressed down on the new mattress again, her eyes snapping open as she sat up sharply, throwing the duvet off, her sudden movement scaring Naruto and making him jump back on reflex. Kyuubi spent a few seconds just staring at the bed. "What?" she muttered aloud, her confusion evident. Naruto's chuckles caught her attention, bringing her mind off the puzzle of the bed for a second. "You like it?" Naruto asked. "I made it myself," he added proudly. Kyuubi swung round to sit on the edge of the bed. "You really made this?" she asked. "Yeah." Naruto nodded. Kyuubi gave Naruto her warmest smile. "Thanks, it's great," she said. Although the bed wasn't fancy, she recognized Naruto had probably never seen an expensive bed, and it was a huge improvement over the stone-cold floor. Even the small praise and recognition of his ability made Naruto light up. "So how did you make it?" Kyuubi added. "Well, I just thought you shouldn't be sleeping on the floor and it kinda happened." Naruto chuckled. "It's weird because before I could only do really simple things, but that was really easy." Kyuubi nodded, her eyes flicking to the seal's bars for a second. I think the seal was preventing you affecting your mindscape," she offered, although I never saw anything that suggested it was doing so. She added, speaking to herself more than Naruto by this point. "I guess that part of the seal must have completely unraveled before I got to it." Naruto frowned. "Why would they stop me changing my mindscape? What's the point in that?" he questioned. Kyuubi considered it for a few seconds. "Well, two reasons spring to mind. They might have been worried I would be able to mold your mindscape in the same manner you can. After all, none of them really knew the exact mechanics or results of sealing a biju. It could also have been done because they feared if you could affect your mindscape, it would be easier for me to trick you into letting me out." She giggled. "Not that it really stopped you from almost freeing me last night." Naruto gave a sheepish chuckle and shrugged. "They obviously didn't expect me to take the obvious route." Kyuubi nodded, giggling a little harder. "Well, I'm kind of glad you did," she said. "I mean, I hate that you got hurt, but it allowed me to make some nice changes to the seal." Naruto nodded. "What changes?" he questioned, sitting on the bed next to Kyuubi, surprised to find the mattress was comfortable. Even though it looked right, he still knew it had been naught but a piece of stone a little while ago. Kyuubi smiled. "Well, I made the emotion link reciprocal, as well as allowing us to cut the link at any time," she began. "Reciprocal?" Naruto asked. Kyuubi shook her head and gave a small sigh. "I can feel your emotions, and you can feel mine. However, both of us now have the ability to shut the link off if we want." Naruto gave a small nod of understanding, so she continued, "I also slightly accelerated the rate Yaki is leaked into your system, because you are slowly acclimatizing to it. This will speed up the growth of your chakra reserves. Every time your body can handle it, I will turn up the speed. I also made it easier for you to draw on my Yaki and for you to control the amount of my power you use. The old seal wasn't designed for you to use my power, so it was hindering rather than helping." She grinned at Naruto. "That means you will have a much easier time learning demonic jutsu." Naruto beamed back. "Awesome, I can't wait to start training." "Now Naruto-sama, I need to give you a warning," Kyuubi said, her voice now deadly serious. Naruto gulped and nodded. "Whatever you do, don't let anyone see your new seal. You can show Hinata when she's ready to find out about me, but make her promise not to tell anyone before you do." Naruto nodded. "Okay," he agreed. "I promise I won't let anyone else see the seal." Kyuubi nodded, her serious air vanishing as soon as she had Naruto's word. "Good." She grinned softly. "Oh, and Naruto, I've got a gift for you." Naruto's grin grew exponentially. "Really cool. What is it?" he asked, bouncing on the balls of his feet. Kyuubi appeared to falter for a second before replying, "Follow me." She turned and walked towards a door, now fading into view, in the wall. Naruto frowned as he spotted the door. How could he have missed it? After a brief moment of berating himself for his lack of observation skills, Naruto followed Kyuubi through the door. He found himself in a room, at least he thought it was a room. He could see a wall behind him and another in front of him with a single door set into it. However, where the other two walls of the room should have been, there was nothing but blackness that seemed to stretch off into infinity. It sent shivers down Naruto's spine, just looking into that endless stretch of inky blackness. Kyuubi walked across the room seemingly unaffected by the abyss as she stood next to the other door. "Go in there." Naruto nodded, walking across the room as well, his eyes flicking constantly to the darkness, as though afraid it would suddenly envelop him. Kyuubi, easily picking up on his nervousness, gave him a reassuring smile. Don't worry about the black, it can't do anything to you. Although Naruto was still skeptical about exactly how safe this darkness was, he trusted Kyuubi and nodded again, speeding up. Once he was at the door, Naruto paused his hand on the handle. Aren't you coming in? He asked. Kyuubi shook her head. No, I'll be right here though for when you come out. Naruto nodded, frowning softly as he tried to deduce what his gift could be, pausing and laughing at himself after a second. He only needed to open the door to find out. Why was he still standing here trying to guess what it was? He wrapped his hand around the door handle and yanked the door open eagerly. As the door opened, he felt a pull on his mind, not unlike what he felt when Kyuubi pulled him into the mindscape. He stopped fighting the tug, and suddenly the room he was standing in shifted and warped before fading to blackness. The blackness lifted and Naruto found himself in the arms of a giant. No, the person was just an adult and he was tiny. He tried to move, but found whatever body he was in appeared to be moving of its own accord, and he had no control over it. Panic flitted through his mind, overlaying the strange soothing sensation he felt at being held. The body he was in looked down, and his mind reeled in shock from what he saw. He was looking down at a baby's body with a Shishofuan seal on its stomach. His seal. He was looking at his own body as an infant. And yet, despite being surprised by this, he still felt a strange sense of deja vu. Something clicked in Naruto's head. This was his memory. That was the only explanation that could explain this. The ninja holding him ducked through a window into a half-lit room. Walking over, Naruto still held firmly in his arms, he knelt before a woman. His baby self locked its eyes onto the woman and held out its arms, reaching for her, letting Naruto take in her appearance. She seemed ragged and tired, but her bright blue eyes burned with a fire faintly reminiscent of his own. She was wearing a simple white hospital gown, her red hair ruffled and unkempt. Naruto felt drawn to that woman. Somehow he frowned slightly. At least he would have had he had control over the body, finding it difficult to untangle his own thoughts from those of his baby self. The sealing was a success. The ninja holding him informed the woman solemnly. Naruto recognized the voice of the one holding him, but couldn't quite place it. He wished he could just turn his face to see that man's face. The woman nodded slowly. So does that mean? Naruto guessed the person holding him nodded as the sadness became just that little more prominent, but no tears fell. She held the look of one who would mourn in secret, with no one around to witness her weakness. And the demon? She asked, her eyes locking onto the seal on Naruto's belly. The demon has been sealed. The man holding him confirmed, stepping closer and handing Naruto to the woman. Your son is a hero, Kushina. Naruto froze as he heard those words. This was his mother. He finally knew who his mother was. The memory wavered and faded, and Naruto found himself back in the room with Kyuubi, tears streaking unimpeded down his face. His eyes locked onto Kyuubi, and he dove at her, wrapping his arms tightly around her. Thank you. He repeated over and over. Kyuubi wrapped her arms around Naruto as well, holding him close, a small serene smile on her face. It took Naruto a good few minutes to rein in his emotions. Giving Kyuubi another squeeze, he planted a soft kiss on her before breaking the hug. Thank you. He said one more time. This time he spoke softly, his voice laden with emotion. Kyuubi smiled at Naruto. I'm sorry, that was the only memory of your real mother I could find, and I couldn't find anything about your father. She apologized, frustrated. Her search had yielded nothing that would force the enactment of the Craw. Her scheme had hit a brick wall before it even got going. Naruto shook his head. I don't care, I know who my mom is now. That means more to me than I know how to say. It's the best gift I've ever gotten. He grinned. So does that mean we can look through all my memories? Kyuubi frowned slightly. Most of them. You don't have any memories before the sealing. I suspect the mental trauma of the sealing is the culprit there. However, it appears that she paused, searching for the right word. Dark side, for lack of a better term, has been preserving all your memories perfectly. Naruto frowned. Why? He questioned. Kyuubi hesitated. She was fairly certain she knew the answer, and it wasn't pretty. She was afraid of what he would think of her if he found out, although that went against everything she knew about him. Are you sure you want to know? She asked softly. It's really not nice. She guessed that she had kept the memories around so she could use them to break Naruto's spirit at a later date, making him relive every bad memory and picking apart a few good ones. Naruto nodded. If you don't want to tell me, then don't, Kyuubi-chan. Kyuubi nodded and shot Naruto a grateful smile. Thanks. Anyway, why did you want to know if you could see all your memories? Naruto grinned. Mizuki-sensei showed us this awesome wind jutsu at school today, and I want to see it again. He chuckled. If I watch him over and over, I can learn the hand signs too. Kyuubi froze and stared at Naruto. That's perfect. She whispered to herself. Naruto had unintentionally provided her with a solution to her big problem. Well, if it worked anyway. We could try that, but not with a jutsu. Let's try something simpler. Naruto pouted that his chance to possibly learn a jutsu had been taken away, but nodded. So what then? Kyuubi thought about it. Tree walking, that'd be a good test. She announced after a moment's thought. Naruto nodded, looking a little disappointed that he would be reliving that exercise. Alright, so how do we do that? Kyuubi grinned and closed her eyes. You'll see. She mumbled, concentrating on last night's tree walking training. The door behind them appeared to waver before solidifying again. Go into the door, she said. Naruto looked confused for a moment before shrugging and following Kyuubi's command. Kyuubi watched Naruto's form fade from view. She would need to teach Naruto how to memory walk and control his mindscape to use this efficiently. She shrugged and sat down. She would retrieve Naruto in around an hour, and then they would find out if this actually worked or not. If anyone with the ability to see chakra had been looking at Naruto's unconscious form, whilst he relived the memories, they would have seen his feet slowly pulsing with his chakra. The hour passed slowly for Kyuubi as she sat outside the door. If this worked, and she played her cards right, everything would fall into place almost perfectly. However, if it didn't, then she would be forced to come up with a new plan to get Hinata accustomed to having an open relationship. She gave a heavy sigh. It was killing her not knowing whether or not this experiment would work. She definitely agreed with Naruto, surprises suck. Finally, the last few seconds ticked away and she jumped to her feet, stepping into the memory and pulling Naruto back out. Time's up, she informed him. Naruto frowned. What? He questioned. I was only in there for half an hour, 40 minutes tops. Kyuubi shook her head. It was an hour out here, she replied with a small sigh. He wasn't even managing a 1:1 ratio of time. She would really have to train him in how to do this properly. Naruto's frown deepened. How does that work? He all but demanded. Kyuubi grinned. I'll tell you after we find out if this little trick works, she replied. She wouldn't have much to look for, but she was fairly confident she would be able to see any improvement he made, however small. Naruto pouted slightly and muttered under his breath about his Kyuubi-chan being a meanie and not answering his questions, but he slipped back out of the mindscape and into his body, stretching his limbs and grumbling once more as he found his left leg had fallen asleep. Once his leg finally decided to respond to his brain, he turned to face the wall. You watching, Kyuubi-chan? He asked as he walked slowly towards the wall. Yeah. Kyuubi responded. I'm watching, Naruto-sama. Naruto frowned gently. Call me Naruto-kun, we're like boyfriend and girlfriend now, aren't we? He asked, his face coloring lightly. Kyuubi blushed slightly too, but she smiled. Alright, Naruto-sa. Kun. Naruto beamed as he walked around on the wall, wildly annoyed as his control slipped ever so often, leaving the odd footprint in the plaster. So what do you think? He asked. It seemed a little easier to keep control than it had been last night, but he wasn't entirely certain. There was a silence whilst Kyuubi did a little happy dance in her head. It worked. Her plan could proceed. That's awesome, she finally declared. It works perfectly. Good job, Naruto-kun. Naruto's grin couldn't get any larger as he settled back on the sofa and closed his eyes, rapidly finding himself back in the mindscape. The trip made even easier now. Kyuubi had altered the seal to better accommodate their meetings. As soon as the mindscape materialized, Naruto ran over to Kyuubi and pulled her into a quick hug, planting a small kiss on her cheek, his face burning red as he did so. So what's with the time thing? He questioned, settling into her arms happily. Well, your brain works much faster than your body. It might have taken your body an hour to do it in real life, but that doesn't mean you have to take an hour to see it. Kyuubi explained, gently pulling Naruto against her, enjoying the contact with the person she loved. Normally, by the time someone has the ability to look through someone's memories like this, even their own, they can get at least a 1:1 ratio of time in the memory and time that passes in the real world. Naruto frowned. What about me? Why wasn't I in there an hour then? I can look at my memories, right? Kyuubi gave a small sigh. I was getting to that. You don't look at your memories under your own power. You visited your mindscape only by using the seal as a catalyst. Catalyst? Naruto echoed blankly. Kyuubi gave a low growl. Every time she was reminded how little he had been taught, she just wanted to go flat in that stupid academy. The seal is the reason you can come in here, it helps you, she offered. Naruto gave a nod of understanding, and then I was the one to locate the memory, so you really don't have any knowledge of mind walking at all. She giggled gently at herself, in retrospect expecting anyone without any experience of mind walking to get even a 2:3 ratio was a little unrealistic, and for Naruto to manage even the 1:2 he apparently did was very good for only his second experience of being in a memory. Naruto nodded again. So are you going to teach me? He asked, excited at the prospect of learning something new. Kyuubi nodded. Yeah, I'll teach you after. She paused. Actually, since you've already missed 2 hours, want to skip the academy today? Naruto actually paused for a second. What about Hinata-chan? He questioned. Kyuubi grinned. We could go find her as she leaves the academy, and then you could hang out with her for a bit, she suggested. Naruto nodded. Sounds great. So what are we going to do now? Well, firstly we need to come up with an excuse. Kyuubi replied with a scheming smile on her face. Time to put her plan into action. An excuse for what? Naruto asked. Well, if you actually want to use the jutsu you learn this way, you'll need to be able to explain how you learned them, Kyuubi explained. Naruto's face fell. Oh. He muttered, racking his brain for any possible way he could explain away any information he gained this way without it leading to questions he'd rather not answer. He looked up at Kyuubi, seeing the grin on her face, a matching smile appearing on his lips. You have an answer, don't you? It wasn't really a question. Yeah. Kyuubi nodded. We can pass it off as a Kekkei Genkai. No one knows your parents, so there shouldn't be any questions about how you got it. Naruto chuckled. That's perfect. He declared. Kyuubi grinned. Well, I'm going to have to teach you a few things, and we need to decide on other things before we can do that. What? Naruto asked, curious. Well, we need to decide what it looks like and what to call it. Once we have that, I need to teach you a minor demon illusion so you can change your eyes whilst the Kekkei Genkai is active. Naruto gave a small nod. Won't I also need to explain what it does? Kyuubi's grin grew a little. Not for a while, you can just say you don't know until you master it. Naruto chuckled, hugging Kyuubi. That's awesome, Kyuubi-chan. You think of everything. Kyuubi blushed under Naruto's praise. Not everything, I just have more experience at this than you. She gave him a mischievous grin. It's practically in my blood. Now what shall we get it to look like? Naruto was silent for a while as he considered the Sharingan and Byakugan, the only two Kekkei Genkai he knew of, and maybe my eyes could turn a different color. Kyuubi nodded. Let's go with purple. She said she knew Naruto's eyes would turn red if she took over, and this way he might be able to pass it off as the second stage of his Kekkei Genkai, and we should probably do something to your pupils as well. Naruto nodded. Sure, purple sounds good. He agreed. Maybe I have two pupils that remain my original eye color. Kyuubi nodded. The design was crude at the moment, but they would refine it once Naruto learned the jutsu and could see what they looked like better. So what should we call it? Naruto chuckled. Gijim, he offered. Kyuubi giggled. False eye. She shook her head. Sure, that works. Over the next few months the days shortened, the leaves on the trees changing from green to the full spectrum of yellows and oranges as summer drew to a close and autumn set in. Kyuubi trained Naruto as much as she could. His dreamscape training was now split evenly. Of 2 nights spent learning how to mind walk and control his mindscape and memories better, 2 nights spent learning theory, history or some other subject, and 2 nights spent actually revisiting memories, leaving 1 night a week free for Kyuubi and Naruto to just hang out or go on a date, although Kyuubi often joked that they served as lessons in love. Naruto soaked up the knowledge like a sponge. He wanted to make her proud of him and was beginning to find it getting harder and harder to not just blurt out correct answers to questions in class, although the years of experience in lying coupled with Kyuubi's reminders meant he very rarely slipped up and he had a reasonable excuse every time he did. It had only taken a month for Naruto to master changing the landscape of his mind. The seal had been weakened, but they had found it out. It still messed with the malleability of his mindscape, and the first thing he had done was make Kyuubi's seal much more comfortable after sending her off to find a memory, so it would be a surprise. Kyuubi's response to that particular surprise had been to tackle her host to the ground and rain kisses down upon his face. Along with his mental training, Kyuubi had also stepped up Naruto's physical training. Most days Naruto would head out into the forest after school and not return until well after the sun had set. She drilled chakra control exercises into his head until tree walking was almost second nature to Naruto, and they had only recently started moving on to water walking, which more often than not led to a soaking and rather peeved Naruto and a very amused Kyuubi. In addition to the chakra exercises, they had also stepped up Naruto's physical training. The new training schedule he was under would make Guy proud, and the benefits were beginning to show. Naruto was getting a lot faster and stronger, however his taijutsu was still totally abysmal. Despite Kyuubi's best efforts, it was improving, but it wouldn't be passable anytime soon. Kyuubi and Naruto had grown closer over the months, both of them taking every opportunity to kiss or hug the other. Their dates often ended with the two of them laying in each other's arms and just enjoying each other's company, occasionally kissing. Naruto had also gotten closer to Naruto. They went on dates at least once a week, and fairly recently, Hinata had even joined Naruto in his training once or twice a week, although that relationship hadn't developed as much as with Kyuubi. They hugged or held hands fairly frequently and occasionally kissed each other on the cheek, but hadn't done much more than that, although this was more their fault than anything else. Naruto wasn't pushing for anything more because he was terrified he would go too far and push Hinata away, losing his only real friend in his age group, and Hinata's shyness kept her from pressing the relationship forward, either meaning that although they both felt ready to go further, neither of them said anything about it. However, her time with Naruto had begun to put cracks in Hinata's shell, and when they were alone she lost at least some of her stuttering, although her cheeks were still colored by an almost permanent blush, and she barely ever fainted anymore. Naruto sat on the sofa eyeing his front door, his hands nervously nursing a kunai. For any other child this would have been a good day, doubly so in fact, it was both a festival for the defeat of the Kyuubi and his birthday. However, Naruto, as reality was only too keen to remind him, was no ordinary child. Kyuubi had been depressed all day. This day reminded her both of the number of innocents she had killed in the attack and of the pain she had caused Naruto by being sealed in him. Naruto had been trying to cheer her up for most of the day, desperately yearning to enter the seal and comfort her in person, but she had blocked him, not willing to leave his body unguarded until she was fairly certain he would be in one piece when he woke up. He knew better than to dare leave his house, and now as the daylight began to wane, he guessed it would only be a matter of time until some villager got the brilliant idea to finish off the forced work. A quiet knock on his door snapped him out of his revelry, and he stood up cautiously, approaching the door, his mind working overtime. Who was it? Why did they knock? His grip on the kunai tightened. "Hello?" he called. The voice replied after a small pause, "Hi." Naruto hastily tossed the kunai to his side and flung the door open, putting on his best grin. "Hinata-chan," he declared happily. "Why are you here?" he asked as he ushered her inside, closing the door behind her to try and retain what little heat his dilapidated boiler provided. Hinata frowned softly. Naruto seemed really on edge. More so than usual, every one of his muscles was tense and he appeared to be on high alert. Normally he would have just flung the door open, but this time he hadn't opened it until after he had heard her voice. What was worrying him to such a degree that he would be this cautious? "Well, it's your bee," she supplied to answer his question. Naruto nodded slightly. "And?" he questioned, confused. Hinata blinked, giving Naruto an incredulous stare for about a second before realizing he had never had anyone to celebrate his birthday with, her stare dissolving into a sad smile as she reached into her jacket pocket, retrieving a small package wrapped in powder blue paper. I got T.F. for you," she said, blushed and gently pressing the gift into Naruto's hand. Naruto stared silently at the present, his hand shaking slightly. He was aware that people supposedly got gifts on their birthday, but that happened to other people, not to him. He tenderly unwrapped the paper, finding a long rectangular black box inside. His hands shook a little more and his vision blurred with unshed tears. Here was physical evidence that someone cared for him. "Are you okay?" Hinata asked softly. She hadn't expected Naruto to react like this. And he hadn't even seen her gift yet. Naruto gave a small nod. "Yeah. I'm fine." He broke his eyes away from the box and his gaze locked with Hinata's, her cheeks flushing a deep red whilst his lit up with a gentle pink glow. "You have no idea how much this means to me," he whispered softly. The raw emotion in his voice surprised Hinata, although she noted, somewhat disappointedly, he still hadn't let his guard down. "Aren't you going to open it?" With a small chuckle, Naruto nodded. "Yeah." He gingerly opened the box and pulled out its contents. In his hand was a silver pendant, a simple silver disc attached to a fine chain. He lifted it up to get a better look, finding the disc was carved. One side held the Uzumaki spiral, the same design on the back of his jacket, whilst the other side had a familiar seal on it. His brows furrowed for a second as he tried to recall where he had seen it before. Hinata smiled softly. She thought his thinking face was adorable. "A storage seal," he finally whispered. Hinata gave a small nod, a little surprised. She hadn't expected Naruto to be able to identify the seal. "Yeah," she confirmed. "No, you won't th. Throw away your p.par. P parents' jacket, so thought you could seal it in there," she explained, blushing. Naruto's eyes flicked between the necklace and Hinata as the tears he had only just brought under control threatened to erupt once more. This was perfect. He could keep the last connection to his parents with him at all times without having to wear it or worry about it getting damaged. He dove at Hinata, hugging her tightly. "Thank you," he exclaimed, his eyes locking onto her lips as his head inched forward slowly before bridging the last of the distance in an instant, his lips meeting hers. Hinata's body stiffened and she squeaked in shock. Naruto-kun was kissing her. Once her brain had managed to process that little fact, she began to kiss back, her blush reaching new heights, and she felt, for the first time in a good few weeks, faint. However, she refused to let that feeling out, mercilessly stomping it down. Their lips broke apart slowly. Naruto's face flushed softly whilst Hinata's was glowing bright red. About a second later, Naruto's brain engaged, and he realized what he had done, his blush jumping to almost match Hinata's as he grinned at her, getting a small smile in return. He slipped the necklace around his neck and pulled off his jacket, leaving him in just a black t-shirt and jeans, and sealed it away. "Thanks again, this is the best gift I've ever gotten." He paused and gave a small chuckle. "Well, it's the only gift really." He didn't count the storage scrolls and other things from the old man because they were more of a necessity than anything else. Hinata gave a small nod, her mind reliving the kiss, leaving her body to fend for itself, her gaze firmly on Naruto's lips. She began to lean forward slowly at first, but building in speed as she neared, but paused, their faces mere inches apart as her shyness returned in full force. Naruto gave a good-natured chuckle and closed the gap. Once again their lips brushed together. Naruto gave a small happy sigh. Maybe this birthday wouldn't be so bad. He smiled tenderly at Hinata. "So how la?" Dottie froze halfway through his question, his head snapping to the door and his eyes widening in fear. Wah Hinata began before Naruto shut her. Naruto strained his hearing, he could hear them. He could hear the rapid footfalls as the group approached and could just about make out cry of kill the demon. And other rather less pleasant and more descriptive cries along the same vein. His head snapped to Hinata, if they found her here. Pure terror filled his mind, enough that Kyuubi felt it through the partially closed link. What is it? She demanded. The mob's coming, and Hinata-chan is here. Naruto yelled back, his mind working overtime. There wasn't time to escape without being seen. He grabbed Hinata's hand quickly. Follow me. Hinata nodded, fear building in her gut. Naruto's terror was obvious, and he wasn't afraid of anything. So why was he panicking? What's going on? She stammered out. Naruto darted into his bedroom, pulling open the closet and gently pushing Hinata into it, giving her the best reassuring grin he could. Don't worry about anything. He instructed, just stay here. No matter what you hear, stay in here. Hinata frowned softly, what's going on? She repeated, her mind desperately trying to find some reason for his actions. Naruto leant in and kissed Hinata softly. Just promise me, promise you won't come out until I get you, no matter what. He pleaded, if she came out and was found. Hinata gave a small nod. I promise. She agreed solemnly. Naruto almost visibly relaxed, the mob was almost upon them now. Good. He began to close the door but paused and took of the necklace, pressing it into Hinata's hands. Keep this safe for me. He said, and remember, I love you. He gave her one last grin before pushing the door shut. Hinata sat in the darkness, her mind reeling. Naruto-kun loved her. And why did he sound like he was saying goodbye? She yearned to leave the closet and get her answers, but she didn't want to break her promise to Naruto. Naruto wandered back into the main room, locating the kunai he had thrown away when Hinata had arrived. What are you doing? Run. Kyuubi exclaimed as Naruto took a seat waiting for the mod to arrive. I can't, if I go then they'll trash the place and they could find her, hurt Hinata. He stated resolutely, his mind already made up. He had a small sad smile. Talk to you later, Kyuubi-chan, I love you. He closed the link as tightly as he could before she could reply. He knew the link would carry pain and wasn't going to let her suffer through this as well. Kyuubi yelled, pounding uselessly at the link, desperately trying to re-establish a link with Naruto. A heavy sob racked her chest. Damn it. Would she have to be so useless? She slammed her fist into the wall, glaring at the seal. If only she wasn't trapped here, then maybe she could help him. You better survive. She screamed, tears beginning to form in her eyes as her voice broke. I'll never forgive you if you go and die on me. Naruto felt Kyuubi's incessant attempts to force the link open but refused to budge. It hurt to cut her off like that, but if it was for her own good he would beg for forgiveness later. He could hear the mob practically at his doorstep now. Moving to a window, he peeked outside, scanning for any of the small handful of anbu that would actually put a stop to the mob before it began. Most of them were content to watch the beating and swoop in at only the very last moment, if only to avoid the wrath the Hokage promised to bring down if Naruto died or went missing under their watch. He found none. Giving a sigh, Naruto regarded the kunai in his hand. Originally he had planned to escape using the kunai as a last resort, but now running wasn't an option. The weapon would probably just serve to make the beating worse. With another weary sigh, he dropped the kunai to the floor and kicked it under the sofa. He knew what was coming, but found himself oddly calm. Normally he was reduced to blind panic in the face of a mob, but this time was different. Maybe it was because he was resigned to his fate and was no longer trying to find ways of avoiding it. Maybe it was because he was protecting Hinata-chan and Kyuubi-chan. He didn't really know. His reflection was rudely broken only a few seconds later as the door to his apartment flew open, almost flying off its hinges. There it is. Screamed one of the villagers. Get it? Another added. The fist flew out of the crowd, obviously chakra enhanced, and slammed into his jaw. Naruto flew backwards, slamming brutally into the wall with a loud crash, cracked spiderwebbing from the point of impact. Naruto gave a grunt as the collision forced the breath from his lungs, but he didn't cry out in pain. He had learned long ago that crying out meant nothing. The anbu would save him when they felt like it, and not a moment before. The crowd advanced on him once more fists and feet flying, as everyone tried to land a hit on the demon child. Naruto kept his mouth firmly shut, only small gaps escaping his lips when a chakra-enhanced attack connected or he felt a bone break. The anbu on guard duty finally decided to step in after some bright spark had declared that a demon shouldn't be wearing human skin and taken a knife to Naruto's hand, flaying him. The man had gotten halfway up his forearm before the anbu stopped him, dispersing the crowd as quickly as they could, catching one or two token victims, but letting the vast majority of the group scatter. One of the anbu had fetched the Hokage, who arrived on the scene only moments after the last of the aggressors had vanished into the night. His normally calm friendly face set in an angry scowl as he saw Naruto's condition. He was lying slumped against the wall unconscious. Sarutobi was grateful for that small mercy. His right arm missing most of its skin from the forearm down and leaking blood at an alarming rate. He was covered in multiple wounds, his left leg bent at an unnatural angle in 2 places. He guessed from Naruto's labored breathing that a lung had been punctured, but he didn't know if it had been a kunai or a rib that had done it. His jaw was obviously broken too. He didn't doubt there were more injuries that he couldn't see. He gave an angry growl rounding on the Anbu. Frog, deer, badger, what is the meaning of this? His voice held a dangerous edge. How did it escalate this much? His eyes flicked back to Naruto worriedly every so often. The Anbu wearing the deer mask stepped forward. We apologize Hokage-sama, we prevented a larger crowd of people getting through, but it appears he pointed at the 3 civilians they had caught, who were tied up next to the door, slumped against the wall unconscious, came round a back alley, whilst we were busy and assaulted the boy. His voice was heavy with contempt as he carefully avoided using Naruto's name. Sarutobi glanced to the other 2 Anbu ninja, who both nodded their confirmation of their leader's report. He gave an almost inaudible sigh, his eyes moving back to Naruto once more. He wasn't an idiot, this was clearly the work of more than 3 people, but there wasn't much he could do with the council blocking him at every turn, and if he followed up every erroneous report regarding Naruto his Anbu forces would be reduced to a scant handful at best. He wished he could just assign the few Anbu members who treated the boy at least as well as any other civilian to him as permanent guards, but sadly, the council worked hard to ensure those particular ninja got sent off on missions as often as possible. After a moment's deliberation he turned back to the Anbu squad. Very well, see that such a amateur mistake doesn't occur again. He admonished them. They bowed. We apologize Hokage-sama, it won't happen again Hokage-sama. They apologized as a unit in almost perfect unison. What shall we do with the prisoners? Deer questioned. Take them to Ibiki, tell him that they assaulted Naruto. Sarutobi commanded. Yes Hokage-sama. The Anbu replied in unison as they grabbed a prisoner each and exited the premises. Sarutobi sighed and turned back to Naruto bending down and picking the child up. I'm sorry. He said softly, his eyes brimming with sadness. Naruto groaned as the movement snapped him back to consciousness. He opened his eyes weakly. Hey old man. He muttered as best he could, white hot fire exploding through his being as he moved his broken jaw. Sarutobi glanced down, his eyes widening with surprise. Naruto. You're awake. Don't talk, you'll just hurt yourself worse. I'll take you to the hospital. Naruto shook his head no. He stated, bright flashes appearing before his eyes as the agony once more exploded, though him not yet. He forced himself out of Sarutobi's arms and landed on the floor, the pain climbing to new highs as his weight forced the bones in his left leg even more out of alignment. He ignored it, he'd felt worse. Forcing himself to straighten up, he ignored his body's protests as he dragged himself towards his bedroom, leaving a trail of blood in his wake. He'd promised he'd get Hinata once it was safe, and he meant it, damn it. Sarutobi trailed a little behind Naruto. He'd seen the determination in the young boy's eyes, and he knew nothing short of knocking Naruto unconscious again would stop him. He was curious to see what exactly had lit such a fire under the ninja in training. Chapter end. Alright, that's it for today's video guys. Let me know in the comments section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Peace out.